Nick, good to see you. Today we have 5 retirement investing mistakes. A financially secure and happy retirement doesn't just happen. It takes planning and, of course, modifications as you get older. So we're going to walk through some mistakes. Mistake number 1, not having a plan, which is so important to addressing retirees' number 1 fear of running out of money in retirement.
Well, have you seen that movie Ocean's 11?
I have not.
Oh my gosh. Ocean's 11,
people.
Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13. You got to watch them all.
Okay, I will.
Excellent movie. Great cast. I mean, George Clooney at his best, in my opinion.
He's very dreamy.
Yeah, well, in that movie, he plays a character named Danny Ocean, who's basically a thief, right? Well, if you watch anything through these movies, it's that they create these very elaborate plans to be able to steal millions and millions and millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. So if you think about it, well, there's a guy who had a plan. Well, even Nick Saban, Alabama head coach, former Alabama head coach, just retired. Even Nick Saban had a plan. That's what made him the best, one of the best, arguably, football coaches of all time. My personal favorite was Lou Holtz, but Lou Holtz, when he was with Notre Dame, had a plan. So
Go Irish.
Go Irish, right? So the very first mistake that I find people do when they get to retirement is they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan to know if they're invested properly for moving into retirement. And let me tell you, you can't invest at 30 or at 65 like you did when you were 30. Most people don't have an income plan. So they don't know, if I've saved this, how long is it going to last? They don't have a tax plan. And unfortunately, too many of them are paying unnecessary taxes. They don't have an estate plan. So Uncle Sam becomes the biggest beneficiary, and they don't have a health care plan. And so they end up picking like the wrong Medicare plan, or they have to pay these outlandish long-term care costs that they weren't prepared for, all because of poor planning. So you definitely have to look at what you're doing and create a plan for all of these things. Retirement is more than a dollar amount. It's not like, oh, I've saved $1 million, I'm good. It's all these other plans in place as well.
Right. And despite its name, a 401k plan is not a plan.
It's a one kind of plan. That's kind of like saying my car that has 4 doors, the passenger door, that I'm sure there was a plan to put the passenger door in place, but just by putting the passenger door in place doesn't make a car if the engine never made it in. Right. So it's kind of this combination deal.
Right. Exactly. All right. Mistake number 2, forgetting to account for inflation.
Okay. So I wanted to go over some numbers because some people say, yeah, I know inflation's a big deal, but it can't be that big of a deal. Okay. So let's just take a retiree at age 65. Let's say inflation is just 3%. They need $6,000 a month. By the time they hit the age of 70, they don't need $6,000 a month. Now at 70, you need $7,000 a month. Yeah. By the time you hit 80, you need $9,000 a month. By the time you hit 90, $12,000 a month. That's at 3% inflation. So I had a person who came into the office and said, I really don't think I need to plan for inflation. I said, well, let me look at your situation. Younger person, girl, female, so probably going to live until late 80s, early 90s. She was in her early 50s. So what we did is we ran an analysis, what we call a red line analysis, to figure out how long is her money going to last. Now, if inflation was just 2%, her money is going to last until age 100. She would still at age 100 have $930,000 at just 2% inflation. All that we did is we changed the inflation number from 2% to 4%. And now all of a sudden her money, if you can see it here, her money runs out at age 78.
Holy moly.
Just at 4% inflation. That's when it all runs out. Instead of before, here's at 2% inflation and it runs out at age 100. You can kind of move it there. You're right there, age 100. She was still going to have money. Now all of a sudden not. So inflation's a big deal. We have to counter for it. And, just like you're putting up here, we all know, just go to Publix, just go to the shopping store and you'll know. I mean, I can remember when I was a kid growing up, my mom would put me in the seat and push me around the Kroger's. I grew up in the Midwest. And so I would eventually start out in the grocery cart, and then she'd have to get another grocery cart to move me because of how full we could get this grocery cart for $85. Now, $85 gets you a lot less, just like you're showing here. $85 gets you maybe a couple things in the
half a bag of groceries.
Yeah, whatever it is, right? It doesn't get you much anymore.
Yeah.
I remember a time when $250 was like, wow, I spent, it was like a crazy amount to spend $250. And now $250 is like maybe a week. It's insane.
Yeah. All right. Mistake number 3, not working now to create tax-free income in retirement. And why is now the operative word?
Because tax rates are going to go higher.
Yeah.
I have said this for years and years and years that I think taxes are at a discount right now. And here you go, because if we go back in time, look at World War II, tax rates were at 95%, the highest tax rate. Now, if you look at that chart, we're over on the right-hand side. It's actually lower than it ever has been. And you know who else knows this chart? Is the government. The government also knows this. They also know that tax rates are lower compared to history, so they can raise them and then go back and say, yeah, we're raising them, but they're not as high as they once were. And so this is a big deal, that we're seeing. I mean, David Walker, the former comptroller of the United States government, a very smart guy. Look up comptroller, and you're going to find out this is like a accounting genius. And he's said that because of all the debt that we have built up, that we're going to have to double taxes just to be able to get ourselves out of this.
Right.
The tax rates are at lows. And how I look at taxes, just think about that Thanksgiving dinner not too long ago. If you worked all day and you had this Thanksgiving dinner and you cooked it for you and your 15 family members, and all your 15 family members are sitting around the table and all the food's on the table and everybody's ready to dive in, and then on the door, Uncle Sam, big tall hat, comes in, says, hey, I heard there's something in here. And you say, well, hey, yeah, come on in. And he comes in and he opens up a trash bag and he goes across the table and starts taking 30% of everything on the table and dumps it in his trash bag, and then turns around, doesn't even say thank you or bye, and leaves the house with 30% of all the food that you spent all day cooking. And now all of a sudden, the 15 other family members that are sitting there at the table are looking at you like, there's not enough food to feed us. Well, that's exactly what happens. The government is part owner in your money. IRAs, 401ks, the government, Uncle Sam owns 20 to 30% of that money is his. Yep. He's going to recoup it. Whenever you pull 10,000 out, he's going to ask for 3,000 or 2,000.
But if your dinner is a Roth, you're good.
There's the thing. If you're using tax efficient investments like tax-free investing like a Roth, there you go. And so that's why you have to be tax efficient with how you're saving and how you're investing.
All right. Mistake number 4, investing too conservatively, especially if you have a long time horizon.
Well, and that goes without saying, because obviously, if you think about bank accounts, yeah, they're paying more now, but there was a while when the only thing that you were getting in the bank was a bottle of water.
Yeah.
So if inflation was 5%, but you're earning 1% in the bank, you're actually losing money safely. You're losing 4%. And so you have to try and keep up with inflation and try and beat inflation. But what a lot of people do is for the sake of preserving what they've saved, they go to things that have no fighting chance, what we call lazy assets. Basically, money that's not doing any favors for you. It's not helping you keep up with anything. And you're not losing market value. You're losing buying power.
Mm-hmm. Now, the other side of that coin, though, is taking on too much risk as you near retirement.
Well, and I said this earlier, you can't invest at 65 like you did at 30. And so almost look at it as, I would say, have a short-term bucket, a medium-term bucket, and a long-term bucket. Your short-term bucket should be your most conservative, the stuff that you can't lose. That's going to help you pay for bills for the first 5 years, 0 to 5 years. And then your midterm bucket, you can take on more risk. Maybe that covers you from 5 to 10 years. And then your long-term bucket is that money that's way out there, that's 10 years and longer. And the reason that you can be more aggressive with that is if you do have a market drop in year 3, that's okay. You're not using that money for 7 more years, so it has time to bounce back. The problem is most people don't have a short-term, mid-term, and long-term bucket with their investments. They have everything in aggressive, and they have a market that goes down, and now all of their wealth has gone down, and now they're needing to pay the bills, and now they're having to sell out of stock at losses to make it happen. And that's just inefficient. That's one way that you run out of money during retirement. You can look up, all those types of things, reverse dollar cost averaging, or the sequence of returns risks. So you can look that up too to see what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, Nick, it's really helpful to walk through these mistakes because clearly with some planning, a lot of these mistakes can be avoided. If somebody wants to talk to you about them, how can they reach you?
They can give us a call at our office here. It's 844 Group 10. We have a great team beyond just me, but I have a great team that helps with all these things. We almost work like a financial coach of sorts, and we can look at a situation and figure out, okay, what's going on, what's good, what's not going on right, what's a red flag or a loophole or that we can take advantage of, or a red flag that we need to address. So easiest way is to give our team a call, and then what we can do is set up a 15-minute consultation, a 15-minute strategy visit to really look at things through your glasses and see what needs to be fixed, what needs to be addressed.
Right. Well said. All right, Nick, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Great being with you, Erin.